All right, welcome everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you so much. This is the first of what will be a number of events on what we're calling the Price of Poor Leadership Tour. And it's focused on taking stock of where we are as Pennsylvanians, the challenges we face because of poor leadership, and in particular, the challenges we face because of the poor leadership of Bob Casey, who's obviously my opponent. My name is Dave McCormick. I'm the Republican nominee for the Senate race here in Pennsylvania. And really, the stakes could not be higher. And it starts with the most fundamental thing, which Bidenomics and this economy is not working for Pennsylvanians. It's not working for most Pennsylvanians. Most Pennsylvanians, 60%, live paycheck to paycheck. And for them, prices have gone through the roof. Grocery prices are up by more than 20%. Fuel prices are up by 50%. If you go to rent's up by 22%. We've established a website, which we call the Bobflation website, and you can look there, and you can check out how much your weekly expenses, monthly expenses have gone up. Just give you a couple examples. A 6-inch shorty hoagie from Wawa was $4 in 2019. It's $6.91 today. That's a 72% increase in the price. A plain cheesesteak from John's Roast Pork was $9.75 in 2019. It's $12.50, a 23% increase. One-day ticket at Hershey Park was $39.95 in 2019. It's $60 today, a 50% increase. So the majority of Pennsylvanians are getting squeezed. The people on fixed income, seniors, are getting squeezed. And the wages haven't kept up. So when they go to the grocery store, when they pay their rent, it's tougher and tougher. And this is the result of bad leadership and bad policy under Biden, Harris, and Casey. And I say Casey because Casey's voted 99% of the time with President Biden and Vice President Harris. He is a sure thing. He is a rubber stamp vote. And the causes are clear. $5 trillion of new spending under President Biden, Harris, and Casey's vote. That $5 trillion has been the primary cause of inflation. Larry Summers, who's a big Democratic economist, the San Francisco Fed, everybody agrees that the excessive spending is why prices have gone through the roof. It's also the war on energy, the war on fossil fuels by President Biden, Vice President Harris. Bob Casey, 100% of the time, voted against the Keystone Pipeline, for regulations and restrictions on our natural gas. That's driving up fuel prices 50%. It's the failure to stand up against China when China's been unfair in its dealing with U.S. manufacturers. It's the regulations across agricultural businesses, small businesses. That is why our prices are going through the roof. And it's only going to get worse if Kamala Harris becomes our president. She just gave a speech on this. She said $2 trillion more spending and Venezuelan-like price controls, which have been tried in the past and failed. This election could not be more important when you think about the pocketbooks of Pennsylvanians. That's why we need new leadership. That's why the status quo is unacceptable. We need common sense economic policies to get our country back on track, to get Pennsylvania back on track. It's common sense to get our spending under control. It's common sense to unlock our energy sector. It's common sense to support small businesses. Small businesses account for 80% of the jobs in Pennsylvania. And so this election is really a choice between strength and common sense policies like I just described, or the weakness of Senator Casey, who has not been strong enough to stand up to his increasingly liberal party and has voted every step of the way, and he'll vote again every step of the way if Kamala Harris is president. So this choice could not be more important. We're really honored today to have a number of speakers who are experiencing and living with this economic challenge in various ways. We have Tony Chase with us, a fellow veteran, a Naval Academy graduate, so we're friends every day except the day of the Army-Navy game when we cheer against each other. She's also the proud mother of two kids serving in the military, and as a family, they are dealing day to day with Casey's failed policies, and she'll talk about that. We also have Steve Sia. Steve is the owner, and these are the drivers of our jobs in Pennsylvania. He's the owner of a professional detailing business in Camp Hill. And as a small business owner, Steve can speak to the consequences of these economic policies, what it means for those who create the jobs. Then we have my good friend, Greg Rothman, Senator Rothman, who's a Marine. I'm not going to hold it against him, a former CEO, and someone who's been a really successful business guy in the real estate business. And he can talk about what home ownership looks like today. And then finally, we have my friend, Nick DeFrancesco, who's a state Senate candidate for Dauphin County. He's been a strong voice in the economy. He's been a county commissioner. He's been dealing with this at the grassroots level, and also as a president CEO of the Community Bankers. He's seeing what this is doing to rural communities across our great Commonwealth. We're honored to have you all. Let me turn to you, Tony, and thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Tony Chase. I'm a Navy veteran and a proud mom to a 22-year-old son and a 24-year-old daughter who are both starting their own Navy careers. And I'm here today because my family is impacted by the high cost of living. And it's not just my family. Many of my friends have been impacted by the inflationary economy generated by the Biden-Harris administration's unchecked spending spree that Senator Bob Casey enabled and voted for. How are we supposed to be able to afford a 50% increase in gasoline, 54% increase in eggs, 17% increase in milk, or a 22% increase in the cost of cereal? Families like mine have to make choices every day. What can we make do with less? If you're spending significantly more on the grocery basket that you purchased just 2 years ago, you either don't buy everything you used to, or you're not saving as much, if at all. This puts our whole country at risk. About 60% of Pennsylvanians are reportedly living from paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt hit a record high of $1.4 trillion. That's trillion with a T. And credit card delinquency rates continue to climb. This is the price of poor leadership. My children are being shut out of the housing market with rising interest rates. Because inflation impacts so many facets of life, young people simply lack the necessary savings needed to enter the housing market. Senator Bob Casey has been a rubber stamp for the Biden-Harris administration, voting with the Democrats 99% of the time. Harris's joy economy won't come without a price, and Senator Bob Casey will vote for vibes and another spending spree that will cost Pennsylvanians dearly. We just can't afford career politicians like Senator Bob Casey. And what the hell is greed inflation? Dave McCormick gets it. He lives a life of service. He's in this fight for the right reasons. He's resilient, and he will make an impact. That is why I am proud to be here to support Dave McCormick and encourage my fellow Pennsylvanians to elect him to the United States Senate. Dave McCormick, he is ready to go to the mat for us.
Hello, my name is Steve. I'm the owner of C&P Professional Detailing. We are a family-owned business in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. We opened our family business in June of 2020, right dead smack in the middle, as you know, of a pandemic. Initially, our business took off under Trump's policies and economy. During the 2020, 2021, and the beginning of 2022, business for us was going very well. But as the Biden/Bob Casey policies started to take hold in our country and our state, our family business that we worked so very hard to build began to suffer. With rising costs of everything and out of control inflation, high gas prices and the prices of food and basic necessities seemingly tripling almost overnight, just to name a few, it has become very difficult to do business in this state. People like Bob Casey would like to try and convince you inflation is being caused by greedy businesses across Pennsylvania and the country. The facts are the only thing that causes inflation is out of control government spending. Our family business took a big hit. Our business is off by nearly 40% from prior years. I have customers near daily complaining about this economy created by the Biden and his minions, such as Bob Casey in PA, when the economy is so bad and people flat out tell you, well, it's either I feed my family or I have my car ceramic coated and detailed. The choice for them is obvious. Family always takes precedence over luxuries, even in my own household. With that said, I adjusted our pricing structure to reflect the times, lowering prices across the board to help our community and to help spark our family business. Unfortunately, as things get worse and worse under these restrictive policies and out-of-control government spending, it's becoming more and more difficult to operate and thrive in a small business in Pennsylvania as well as other states. We have had to lay off some employees, cut costs, and do whatever we need to do just to keep the lights on most days. We have a wonderful customer base, but these times are not only hurting us, but also families across Pennsylvania, and many other businesses like ours are also suffering, some even closing their doors forever. That is not an area we want to explore in our family business. This is just a few of the reasons I fully support Dave McCormick for Pennsylvania Senate, and of course President Donald J. Trump for president. I feel with the right people in office, people who care about the constituents and not their own personal bank accounts, I feel we can indeed save this country, and our country and Pennsylvania can thrive once again. Thank you for giving me the time and platform to voice my concerns and feelings. We all need to stand together, do our part to make sure we elect the right people to save our state and our country. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Rothman. In June of 1989, I started selling real estate. It's been over 35 years. My father started in 1961. The company that I had the privilege to lead was started in 1970. We have been through, both as a company and as a family, we have seen almost everything there is to see in real estate. And we understand housing. As Dave McCormick said to me earlier today, the American dream is home ownership. I mean, that's what is unique about America too, that 65% of the people can actually own their own homes. But having a home, whether it's an apartment or a place that you own and live in, you know, that's your castle. And right now, since 2020, we have seen the median housing prices in Pennsylvania go from just over $168,000 to, in June of 2024, the median house in Pennsylvania was $312,000. And it is a direct reflection of this inflation. I mean, there's market increase, so we understand how that works. But when the government pumps money, be clear about this, when the government prints money and sends money out, it increases the cost of the products if you're not making any more of that products. And the only way to get rid of inflation is to create more supply. And that'll lower the prices, not creating more money. And Bob Casey and who supports Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris's proposal for housing is to give $25,000 to a select group of buyers to go out and buy. And imagine if you went into this quick serve and there was one cup of coffee, and we were concerned that the price of the cup of coffee was going up, but you handed everybody as they was walking in, or maybe 10% of the people walking in, an extra $5. That money goes directly to increasing the price of the product, which is what will happen to housing. And the people of Pennsylvania can't afford that. Not to mention, we've seen huge rises in interest rates, and the Fed refuses to cut interest rates. Interest rates in January of 2021 for a 30-year fixed conventional mortgage were under 3%. Today, it's closer to 7%. So if you have a $250,000 mortgage over 30 years, a fixed mortgage, at 7% versus 3% is a difference between $1,054 in a monthly payment and $1,750 in a monthly payment for the same exact mortgage on the same exact house. And then we talk about rental properties, which rental properties, there are some people who just want to rent forever. Sometimes it's a place to start. Sometimes it's a transition for someone who's not sure how long they're going to be here. But Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, not far from where we are, this region was ranked by Rent Cafe in a 2022 study as the second toughest rental market in the entire country, behind Miami-Dade County in Florida. Central Pennsylvania was the toughest rental market. For every one apartment, there were 19 applicants. We can't sustain this. We need people like Dave McCormick, who has spent his career in business, who understands how the economy works, how the market works, compared to his opponent who has spent his entire life serving in an elected position. And let me tell you about inflation and shrinkflation and spending and cutting costs. Do you know who has not suffered under this? Our federal government. The government keeps getting richer and richer. They take more and more. Every year, revenues go up. And it's the people of Pennsylvania who are suffering. And Bob Casey has done nothing in his 18 years in Washington to help us, and nothing to do anything about helping the economy or cutting tax rates. In fact, he voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, which turns out to, as the President of the United States recently said, was just about green energy, which also increased the cost of housing. So I'm for Dave McCormick. I think Dave is going to go to Washington and shake things up. He's going to go to Washington, defend the free market and the free enterprise, and we need him in Washington. We're going to need him for the next 6 years, and I'm proud to support him, and I urge everyone else to do the same. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick DeFrancesco. I'm the current county treasurer here in Dauphin County, and I'm also a candidate for the state senate in the 15th senatorial district. Happy to be with you today to talk about an issue that is incredibly important to all of us. And I'm going to talk about a former life of mine where I spent 18 years working for an organization that focused all of their attention on Main Street issues, small business growth development. And I can tell you for much of that 18 years, when we would go to Washington, D.C. to meet with Senator Casey on matters important to Main Street, we would be basically pushed off to a staff member at best. He was disinterested in what we had to share with him. And again, the issues we were talking about were issues that keep main streets like this from boarding up their businesses, trying to incent job creation. And he would push us off to a staff member. And I can tell you that that staff member would even be disinterested at best. We had to fight for time with him to talk about issues that are critically important to all of Pennsylvania. Small business still makes up the majority piece of our economy, and he was unwilling to talk to us. Shifting gears just a bit, for the last several months, my team and I have knocked on over 15,000 doors in this local region as a candidate for the state senate. And I'm going to just share with you two examples of what we're finding out there, and these two examples represent a lot of what we're seeing. I'm standing on the front porch of a woman right here in this borough who is literally breaking down in tears. She's 65 years old. She is now retired, living on a fixed income, and she's admitting to me that she cannot get through her family budget without going to the local food bank. This is someone who served in a career, decided to retire, had great pride in the work that she's done, and now she literally needs to go to a food bank to get through this economy that was created, actually not recently, but a long time ago. It was created by Bob Casey not paying attention to main streets throughout Pennsylvania, not taking the time to actually focus his attention on matters that matter to us, and spending all of his time voting for an administration that doesn't reflect Main Street, Pennsylvania. The second one I'll share with you, because I think it's incredibly difficult to deal with, and that is, for our police and firefighters who retire and have been retired for 20 years, they're not necessarily getting a COLA, cost of living increase. These people are now impoverished based on the economy that we have right now, and it's very unfair to them as well. We need a U.S. Senator who is going to focus their attention on Pennsylvania, focus and listen to the needs of Main Street, Pennsylvania, and get things done when they go to Washington based on that focus and that lens. We need Dave McCormick in the U.S. Senate. Sir, I appreciate your running, and I support you wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. All right, well, thank you. I mean, that was great because you hear the different dimensions of what this economy is. And the most fundamental thing we need to do as public leaders is create economic security for our citizens. And the thing that Bob Casey has failed to do, and Vice President Harris and President Biden have failed to do, and which will only get worse if Kamala Harris is the president and Bob Casey is the senator, is create economic security for most Pennsylvanians. We heard the story just to remind, 60% of Pennsylvanians live paycheck to paycheck. And life has gotten much, much harder in the last 3.5 years under skyrocketing prices, under a war on energy, which has driven up the price of gas by 50%. We're at a gas station here. You look at those numbers, it's hard to imagine. And it's the result of bad leadership and bad policies. This election is a choice. The economy is a fundamental responsibility of our public officials. We need leadership in place that understands that the private sector, free enterprise, job creators are the key. We need leadership that understands that inflation is the most insidious tax. It hurts those who are living on the edge the worst. It hurts those who are living on a fixed income the worst. We need common sense policies. We need to rein in spending. We need to open up our energy sector. We need to make it easier for small businesses to prosper. We need to hold China into account. We need leadership to get our economy back on track. That's what I offer. That's what I'll offer in the U.S. Senate. This election is a choice. And I just want to thank all the friends and supporters and the speakers that are here today just to shed light on this most important subject here in a community, like many communities across Pennsylvania that's struggling. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
If here have questions about the cost of living, Dave has time for a few.
Yes.
Hi, thanks for your time today. Audrey Baldwin with National Review. One of your speakers talked about Kamala Harris's housing plan. She's proposing building 3 million new housing units and 25K credit for first-time homebuyers. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you think that misidentifies the problem with inflation regarding housing prices and the solution?
The most fundamental thing, and I'll turn to Greg too to offer his thoughts on this because he's got real expertise. But the most fundamental thing is that the root cause of the inflation is the $5 trillion of new spending. And what's so critical here is that Larry Summers, Jason Furman, the San Francisco Fed, all serious people, even on the Democratic side, acknowledge that. So you've got to rein in the spending. You've got to unlock energy. Interest rates have gone up in large part to offset the extreme rise in inflation, a 40-year high in inflation. We hit 9%. And I just want to make sure everybody recognizes, I'm sure you do, but when Bob Casey says inflation has gone down, what that means is the rate of growth in the rise of prices has slowed, and compounded prices are still up to historical levels, and wages haven't kept up. So we got to get to the root cause. What's happening with housing is just a symptom of a broader set of economic challenges that have been created by inflation. And inflation has been created by the weak leadership and the extreme liberal policies of Biden, Harris, and Bob Casey. And I say Bob Casey with all fairness because Bob Casey has been a sure vote. Every step of the way he's voted for that agenda. What would you add?
So, yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, the 3 million new houses is, we could use that. And certainly the supply and lack of supply plays a big role in pricing too. We normally have about 6 months worth of supply. In the current Harrisburg market, we have about 3.5 months worth of supply. So, but I'm not sure the details of 3 million new housing. Is that government housing? Is that government going to be building the housing? And the other thing that contributes to increasing the cost is when you subsidize housing. So if the government, if her idea is we're going to help pay for new housing, that's not what we want. I mean, having been in the free market and been in the real estate market for 35 years, leave us alone. There are some things that government can do to get out of the way of development and redevelopment. We're in Steelton, Pennsylvania. They've gone through some tremendous redevelopment, and right behind us is the former Bethlehem steel mill, the steel that helped build this country. But government, by subsidizing things, also increases the price. So absolutely we need more product, but we need to let the free market build a new product. And I think if that's her intention, that's one thing. If it's government building housing, we've stopped that, and we've seen what a disaster that was. Government housing is not a good route to go. So.
Yes. Are there any specific relief policies you're looking at right now to combat price rises, while we continue not spending as much money in the federal level?
Well, there was a pro-family policy agenda that I laid out in a speech, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks ago. And in that, I tried to zero in on the challenges that families are having in having children. And as you probably know, the birth rate is down to about 1.8 per family in the United States. It needs to be 2.1 children per family to just maintain our population. So in that agenda, and Lizzie can share that speech with you, there was a couple things that I outlined. One was double or maybe even increase it more the child tax credit that was in the 2017 Trump tax cuts. The second was the idea of a IVF, fertility treatment, IVF tax credit of up to $15,000 per family on multiple tax years. The reason that's so important is right now having children is outside the financial ability of many families because IVF is so expensive, and if women are in the workforce and they wait till later to have children, it's even harder. So fertility treatment is something that I offered all employees when I was a CEO. It was one of the most profound things that we could do, and I think our society needs to make it easier to have children. Bob Casey and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have made it harder under their administration because prices have gone up by more than 22% and wages haven't kept up. Families are getting squeezed and it's harder and harder to have kids. So that's a second idea that I offered. And then there was a $10,000 tax credit that was also there to help with early child health care and early child, the word's escaping me, early child care. So those three things all designed to create the financial wherewithal for families to have children. And right now what's happening is those that are well-to-do, well-off, can afford to have IVF. They can afford child care. They can afford all the things for families. Those that are living on the edge, which is most people, cannot. And so those are some of the targeted policy ideas. Other?
Are you on board with any ideas to deregulate the housing market or make it easier for builders to build? Because we've heard a lot about the issue of needing more supply rather than less demand. I know there's actually the state level, and Greg and I have talked about this before, but I don't know if it's federal government.
By and large, without getting into too much specifics on the housing market, I don't know enough to really talk with authority there. My general view is that we need to deregulate in a significant way across most sectors. The most notable, the thing that would change the economic outlook of Pennsylvania in profound ways is energy. And we need to deregulate in the energy sector. We need to have permitting reform that allows and makes it much easier to have pipelines. We need to make it much easier to drill. We need to reduce the ability of environmental groups to lock up energy companies in legal battles which take years and years and make the cost of capital or the uncertainty make it difficult to invest. So we need to have deregulation across the board. What's happened in the last 25 years, and it's grown dramatically under Biden, Harris, Casey, is the regulatory state has grown. If you look at the amount of regulation across it, whether it's dairy farms, small manufacturers, or the energy industry, it's grown. So one of the things that I've argued for as the next senator from Pennsylvania is much more focused on reducing regulations in the administrative state. President Trump had an idea which I liked, which is for every new regulation, you should eliminate 2 regulations. That's the kind of bold, when the senator says shake up Washington, that's the kind of thing we're going to need to do to unlock our economy. And the Biden-Harris-Casey regime has taken it in the absolute opposite way. Everything that Kamala Harris recommends and everything Bob Casey supports has the government being the answer. The government needs to get more. The government needs to forgive student loans. The government needs to get involved in price fixing. The government needs to get involved in housing. The government. It's the opposite of free enterprise, and it's going to not only bankrupt us, which it already has, it's going to destroy the dynamism of our economy. Any last questions? All right, thank you all. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I know.